The ayes 52 and the noes 19.
This is an incredibly significant day in the history of our country and the Parliament.
This is big for us, and we can do better than we're doing.
Parliaments pass laws, but it is people who make history.
It's on.
I call the part.
It's officially official. In just a few months' time, millions of Aussies will be doing something they've never done before. Vote in a referendum. Between now and then, though, lots of people are going to have questions about what will happen. So we asked what you wanted to know about this historic moment in Aussie history.
What is this referendum actually about?
The referendum is essentially about two things. The first is to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of Australia. The second part is to set up a body known as a Voice to Parliament. The Voice will be a group of Indigenous Australians that advise and give recommendations to the government on issues that specifically affect them and their communities. It was an idea that formed a big part of this document, the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which was put together by Indigenous delegates from around the country back in 2017. They met at Uluru to talk about how Australia could work to improve the lives of Indigenous people.
When will the referendum actually happen?
This one we're not too sure about. The Prime Minister hasn't officially set a date yet. What we do know, though, is that since legislation has passed, it will happen no earlier than 2 months since the announcement and no later than 6 months.
Why do we need a referendum?
Well, that's because the government wants to change the Constitution. And every time we change something in our Constitution, we have to see if the whole of Australia wants to change it too. The Constitution is essentially a big legal document outlining how the country should be run, which is why changing it isn't easy. We've had 44 referendums in our history, and only 8 have been successful.
What needs to happen for the yes vote to be successful?
In order for the yes vote to be successful, there needs to be something called a double majority. This means a majority of all eligible voters vote yes, as well as a majority of all the states vote yes as well.
Why would someone say no to the referendum?
Recent polls tend to suggest that about 80% of Indigenous Australians support the idea of a voice to Parliament, but that does leave some who are against it.
I'll be voting no to this disastrous idea of giving us no power.
Some say the changes won't actually make a difference to the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, while other no campaigners are against the idea of a voice because they say it could divide Australians based on their race.
This voice model is about empowering the elites.
Others say they need more information on what the voice would actually do and how it would be set up. But the government says that sort of detail will come later. They just want people to vote on whether they think it should exist in the first place.
How would the Voice to Parliament reflect the diverse voices within the Indigenous communities?
Amongst the two distinct cultural groups of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, there are more than 250 language groups spread across the country. While we don't know exactly how the voice will be structured, the government often points to this report when asked about it. In here, it says there will be a national voice made up of 24 members. 2 from each state and territory, 5 from remote communities, 2 from the Torres Strait, and 1 representing Torres Strait Islanders living on the mainland. There would then be 35 local voices representing districts across Australia, each designed and run by the communities they represent. These local voices would be able to have discussions with local, state, and the federal government.
How would the referendum affect non-Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples?
The short answer is this referendum likely won't affect the lives of non-Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The Voice will only advise the government on policies that directly affect Indigenous Australians, but it aims to close the gap and create a more equal Australia. Things like improving the life expectancy of Indigenous Australians, employment rates, and helping kids and teenagers finish school and find jobs. And that's good for everyone.
What happens between now and the referendum?
A lot. We'll start to hear a lot of people campaigning for both the yes and the no vote. The government will be sending out pamphlets explaining the referendum, written by politicians who are on both sides of the argument, and will be translated into 35 different languages and 20 traditional Indigenous languages. It's important to note that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is campaigning for a yes vote.
This is a historic opportunity to make a difference.
And while the opposition leader 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗥𝗬 says he'll be voting no, some Liberal politicians actually quit their position so they could support the yes vote.
I think the voice can make a difference to Aboriginal people's lives. I think it can improve the quality of policy making.
When the referendum happens, every eligible Australian will have an equal chance to vote yes or no in this defining moment in Australian history.